Good morning, everybody. This is Walk the Dog with Riot Mort, and it is Monday, July 7th, about 6:30 a.m. And this is significant because today is the first day where I am not on the TFT team temporarily. It's weird. After stream yesterday, I switched to my work computer and I was prepping the slides for the PBE rundown that Sloan and I are going to do. We're going to film it tonight so that it's ready to go once we reveal the set and people can talk about it, which will be cool. But it was like, oh wait, I can't just work on TFT a little bit. That's weird. It's a weird feeling. It's a weird thing I'm not used to. So instead I started working on the new design problem, trying to get ahead a little bit. But definitely a weird feeling. It's definitely change. And change is something that like eventually you get used to, but at first it's very jarring, especially if you've been, comfortable or happy where you're at. So I don't know. We'll see. Definitely a weird situation, but yeah. Either way though, yeah, recording that PBE rundown tonight. That'll go live in a bit. The learnings article should go up this week at some point. That'll be cool to see. Which is also weird to think about because I might not be writing the 15 learnings article since I won't be around most of the set for that set, which is, I don't know. That'll be weird too. That'll break 14 sets of tradition if that ends up being true. I mean, I'll still be playing the set, but that's a weird one. Well, we'll see how that one plays out. Kind of just realizing that. And then Worlds on Friday with the co-stream. So that'll be fun as well. So, yeah. Other than that, it's going to be a week of me meeting a lot of people and talking about a lot of things. So, yeah. All right. By the way, welcome those of you that are joining from maybe it's Spotify or maybe now that these are on the public YouTube channel. If you guys ever want to ask questions, you can just hop on my Discord and ask questions. That's where we pull these from. I usually just want to talk about what you guys want to talk about, unless there's a rare case where I just want to talk about what I want to talk about. But that's generally how that works. So, yeah. All right. Well, today, speaking of which, we got questions. All right. First question is, okay, this got asked like 10 times a day this weekend on stream. And this question got asked in the chat, which is, hey, Clash Royale, they did their own mini version of TFT. What do you think about it? What are your thoughts on it? So, for those who don't know, this is behind the scenes. One of the things, this is the advantage of like working at Riot where they pay attention to stuff like this, is that Clash Royale has actually been working on this game for like 4 years or longer. 4 or 5 years, I want to say. Because it was originally called Clash Mini. And if you go back and look, you can probably find YouTube videos of Clash Mini. And they released it in certain regions, as mobile games tend to do. There's this thing mobile games do where they're like soft launch it in 1 or 2 regions, see how it does, and then if it does well, they'll ship it worldwide. That's about as far as Clash Mini got. And so, hilariously enough, this was also back when TFT was still relatively young and unproven. So we definitely had a lot of people on our team that were sort of like, hey, it's the big company Supercell. You should look into this. This might be worrying. Are they going to eat our cake? Because that's a natural defensive reaction of like a competitor coming out. And, you looked into it and it's like, it's fine. It serves its purpose, which is it is a very short Marvel Snap length version of an auto battler that removes a lot of the depth in exchange for that quick accessibility. Now, this is my hot take, and this is nothing to do with this game in particular. This is actually just a statement I believe. But There are not many games, if any, that are really, really good, deep games that last about 5 minutes. Every time someone has tried to take the MOBA formula and shift it down to like 5 to 10 minutes, it kind of loses all of its depth and gets very repetitive very quickly. A lot of the very, very short CCGs, very similar. Now you might be going, well, Mort, what about a game like Magic where you can play a game in like 10 minutes? And I think Magic might be one of the exceptions, but even Magic, it took time to be the exception because of how complex each piece is, right? Like each of the pieces are fairly complex. In any particular card in Magic now has a ton of rules text. And hilariously enough, one of the biggest criticisms I've seen of like the new Final Fantasy set is like all the cards are really complicated to make sure they fit their thematics. So like that's where they put their complexity. But like Clash Royale, whatever it's called, whatever its new version is called, that's not it at all. Like the pieces are fairly simple. A lot of the things in that game are pretty straightforward. Marvel Snap was the same way for me. It was like Marvel Snap was fine, and then you played it for a couple hours, and you're like, I get it. That's it. And I believe that one of the reasons TFT has succeeded for a long time is because of that very, very deep systems that keep you coming back and keep you understand. And this is what I say, like, we talked about this a bit last week, but like my understanding of, the genre is the people who truly, truly engage with the genre want tons and tons of possible options and combinations and things like that. They're not looking for the 5-minute bite size quick thing. And I could start to list specific criticisms and things like that, but hilariously enough, at the same time, what I'm supposed to do is not do that because, it would almost be like me going, hey, here's how I would fix their game. And probably don't need to be giving a quote unquote competitor any answers. But, again, overall though, I'll say the same thing I said last week, which is competitors in this genre coming out is great because people will check out the genre. They'll go, that's really cool. There might be a couple innovations that are like, hey, that's pretty neat. And then they'll get bored of it because making a deep auto battler is difficult. And then they'll go, what's the best auto battler out there? I can get more of this. And they'll go TFT. And people will play TFT. And that's a good thing. So, yeah, I don't know. I think it's cool. I also know, hilariously enough, I think he's the lead designer. I don't know his exact role on that team, on the Clash Mini team. But he used to work at Riot. And hilariously enough, and this is a weird trivia story, but very, very, very early on, in Wild Rift, when Wild Rift was being developed, I had been at Riot for like less than a year. And my manager was one of the original founding members, Christina Norman. And so it was Christina Norman and I think his name's Fan, were like the two primary people that were starting on Wild Rift. And they had pulled Feeney and I in to help for a day or two. And so like technically, I was like the third or fourth person to help with Wild Rift a little bit, which was kind of funny. Like I said, for a day or two. And like I said, my only contribution to Wild Rift is I remember playing it. And at the time, and this was like 3 or 4 years before it shipped, Ash's arrow could be steered. And it was something new they were trying. They were like, hey, in Wild Rift, things are going to be a little different. And you could steer the Ash arrow. And I hit a really good ult with it. And I said, this is so cool. No matter what you do, never get rid of this. This is the coolest thing you've got. And you should try to find more cool things. And as far as I understand it, to this day, it still exists. So that is my only contribution to Wild Rift. But yeah, so like I said, I briefly worked with the person who I think, that's, small industry. But anyway, so I don't know. I mean, The other thing is that, as Supercell does, for better or worse, is their versions pay to win. You level up. This is why I personally had dropped from Clash Royale, because I played Clash Royale a lot back in the day. I remember I was playing it when I applied to Riot. Must have been the second time, because they quizzed me on it, and part of my design interviews were actually questions about Clash Royale. And I remember no longer playing it because I got up to all my characters were level 10. And anytime I matched up somebody with equal level characters, I would beat them. But instead, I'd get matched with people who were characters 1 or 2 levels higher than me. I would lose, and I'd be angry that it's because I hadn't unlocked more characters. And so I stopped playing, And that's the other thing about TFT, is that I believe one of its best features is the fact that you can not have played for 5 years. You can come back, and we've even seen it, right? In Twitch chat, some people will be like, hey, Mort, I played TFT back in set 1 or set 4, and I haven't played since. And I just came back to this set. And it's pretty fun. Yeah, that's the point. That's the point. We've talked about before how we're really glad if people take a break or come back, and each new set release is a chance for people to come back and go, I'll play some TFT for a bit. Even if they only play for 2 weeks or a month. That's okay. That's a good thing. And you can't really do that if you have pay to win elements in your game, because what'll happen is someone will show up and go, oh, I guess I just lose because I hadn't dropped $100 or whatever. So, like I said, it's cool. A lot of people keep asking me this, and my answer is sort of it's a game. I don't know. We'll keep doing our thing, They'll do theirs, we'll do ours. We'll be fine. I'm not too worried about it. So, yeah. If anything, I hope they stick around for a while, because more people will get into the genre. So, hi, bunny. That's a bunny. Let's see if I can get it in camera. Can you see it? Hey, bunny. Nope, okay. Bye, bunny. So, yeah, there you go. That's my answer to that question. All right, next question. I'm obviously paraphrasing, but the person was basically like, hey, Sakurai, the Smash Brothers game director, did that YouTube channel for a while. What was the impact of that YouTube channel? Is there stuff you agree with, stuff you disagree with, things like that? What are your thoughts on that? Okay, first off, my goal has always been to be a great game designer. And I think I've done okay. But you know what? I am nothing compared to that dude. Sakurai is a god. And the crazy thing to me is there are still people in this out there who don't see that and don't understand that. And that is wild to me. I tweeted out about this a month ago when someone was like, Sakurai is the laziest developer out there. I was like, what are you talking about? That guy is a god. And if I can have 1/10 the level of impact on the industry that he has, I will have a good career. That YouTube channel was amazing. The guy's just like, hey, you know what? I finished Smash Brothers. I've got some time before my next project. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to spend, $300,000 making my own YouTube channel just to share information with devs on here's how I would make a game. Holy. The dude hired a production company to make sure the videos looked good. I wish I could do that. I mean, the good news is that means Nintendo's been compensating him well. Also, as far as I understand it, and this is one difference between him and I, is he's single, no family, other than his cat. So I kind of lose in that department. Any of the free time where I could just be like, this is what I'm going to do. I should probably be spending with my wife and kids. So I do lose there. And no, that's not some weird commentary about how I wish I didn't have a family. I'm just saying in terms of available free time before someone misreads that. But yeah, so Sakurai is everything I aspire to be. I, you know, I wish I was as good as he is. And that's where I put in a lot of the effort I do. It's why I try to be open and transparent, but with my own twist, because that's just who I am. Now, to the question about like the YouTube channel, a lot of the things I really agree with. Like, I think one of his best things is when he talks about how when you're communicating with people or doing a presentation internally, it's like, keep it short, keep it snappy, go really fast. Like, that level of communication style is so good versus the like, make giant long documents that are like impossible for anyone to comprehend, so there's some good stuff there. Or like the way he works on the character animations and stuff like that. If I had one criticism, it's that generally he always paints everything in a very positive light. There isn't a lot of self-reflection on the things that like didn't go well. So for example, like he made that cool Kid Icarus game, and I love that Kid Icarus game, but it didn't really sell as many copies as I think they were hoping. It didn't really resonate with people. The control scheme ended up being pretty risky. And I would have loved to see more like reflection on that of like, well, here's why we did it this way. Here's why it didn't work. Instead, it's very much painted as a like, here were the things that were great. It's great. Everything's great. There's a little bit of that within the videos, but I feel like part of honesty is revealing all your faults, not just your successes. It's one of the things I think, again, has helped us on the TFT grind is like talking about when we make a bad augment or a bad item or a disappointing trait or something like that. It's like, oh yeah, they see it too. They admit that that wasn't that great, So, but overall, I mean, like I said, I think to me, if you really truly want to get like understand this industry, if you haven't watched at least half of Sakurai's videos, you're doing yourself a disservice. And I say at least half because, maybe there's some stuff around like animation timings videos he did that you're like, yeah, I'm never really working in animation space, so I don't need to watch these. I get it. Or maybe you don't care about the history of the Kirby franchise. So, like, I'm not saying every video is a perfect gem that you need to watch, but there are a lot of good things in there that are definitely worth talking about. And yeah, now the other thing is if you want a life scare, and here's my hot take for the day. This is the kind of take, by the way, that gets me in trouble at Riot. Sakurai posts his schedule, and near the end, he talks about like, here was my schedule of like, well, I was working on the game project from, this time to this time. And then I would go home and I'd work on the YouTube from this time to this time. And then I would do this, and then I would sleep for 5 hours. And I would do it all again. And to me, there's a lot of people at Riot that look at that and go, well, that is an unhealthy work-life balance, and no one should have to do that. But to me, I feel like no one ever accomplishes anything great by doing the bare minimum and doing just what's required of you. If you really want to accomplish something great in life, you put in extra effort, right? And for me, maybe that's streaming, maybe that's extra work hours, maybe it's whatever. But the idea that like it's 9 to 5, time to stop, and I'll make the best game in the industry ever, that's silly. Now, don't get me wrong, for those of you out there that are like, yeah, but I don't like my job and I'm not really inspired by my job and I don't really want to work extra. That's fine. I'm not saying everyone at every job should be working extra, but I am saying if you want to accomplish something great, you usually have to work some extra, And so that's a pretty spicy opinion at Riot, which I don't love. I get in trouble for it a lot by saying things like that, but it's just how I feel. So, yeah. Anyway, TLDR here. Sakurai's videos are great. Again, I think you should watch at least half of them. And if I can be 1/10 as cool as that dude in the industry. Mission accomplished. So, and who knows, maybe someday I'll have an extra 10 million lying around and can make my own $300,000 YouTube channel. So, I don't know. These walks are like my light attempt at that. But again, nowhere near as cool and polished as his were. So, there you go. All right, next question. This one's a weird one. This one's hard for me to answer. What things make for a good workplace? Now, the person asking this question isn't in games, but they're in a corporate area. And so they were sort of asking about like the corporate life and what makes for a good workplace. Now, the reason I say this is a weird question to answer is I'm not very corporate. I'm about as different from corporate as you get. I've talked about it before, how I refuse to use Jira and don't like meetings for the sake of meetings and refuse to follow certain I hate corporate policies that are made because they need to apply to everyone, but you have a really good exception, so you ruin that exception by making crappy policy. Like, there's just a lot about corporations I don't like. Well, Mort, then why do you work for corporations? Well, because there are obviously some great things about corporations. So the best I can contribute here to this conversation is what I like about the corporations I've worked for and see if that helps. And it probably isn't the answer you're looking for, but it's the best I can offer. And so the first thing is that at least with the two corporations I've worked for, and again, I count myself very fortunate that this is true, is that as long as you do good by them, they do good by you. It's a synergistic relationship. What I mean by that is, like, let's say at Nintendo, I would work hard, make good levels, and make good content and help them ship good games. And that effort was rewarded with pay raises over time, promotions, time off when I needed it, things like that. Now, again, the line here is tricky because for some people, when they hear that, they're like, a promotion a year or two. No. These things do take time. And I think I've posted it once on Twitter before. You can probably search it. But I posted my Nintendo salaries over the years. And it's like, over 10 years, I went from like $42,000 a year to a little over $100,000 a year, which for 10 years, 2.5 times your base salary, not bad. Keep in mind, these were numbers, the 42,000 was 20 years ago. So, and I'm sure a bunch of people are going, well, that's it. And yeah, like it was low, but like, I still felt taken care of. I could still take care of my family. And so that to me has always been a big thing, is the mutual respect of a high performer. It's like, I understand that, and in fact, currently on the TFT team, anytime we have a high performer, I have meetings with my boss and I'm like, hey, we should probably be giving this guy a little bit of a bump and we should make sure this person's happy. And it's weird too, because it'd be very easy for me, especially in like today's industry, to be like, well, I don't care if they're happy or not. Have you seen the jobs market out there? They're not going anywhere. That would be a very easy and evil and diabolical way to look at the situation. You know why you don't look at the situation like that? Because it turns out if you have a high performer and you're treating them right and making them happy, well, guess what they do? They keep high performing. They keep crushing it. You get great work out of them. Again, it's a very symbiotic relationship. So that's the big thing to me. As long as that ends up being true, I generally find places to be good to work for. Now, here's the second one. And it's funny because this is relevant to the talk we did last week about the Microsoft layoffs. But making sure that the work has a clear purpose and intention. And what I mean by that is, if you are, let's say you're working on, I'm going to use Project Hammer as the example because that was a game I worked on and I can speak from experience rather than pointing to generalities. If you're working on a game like Project Hammer and you're like, this game is bad. I know this is bad, but my boss wants me to keep making level 2 for no reason because it's busy work. That place is going to suck to work for. That's going to be awful. You're going to look at yourself going, what am I doing? Why am I working on this game that's taking years to ship and isn't good? What are we doing? Right? And so when going back to your question about what makes a good workplace is having leadership that has a clear enough direction to go, here's why I'm having you do the things I'm having you do. Right? So using a TFT example, I can go to my team and be like, hey, I need you to make 80 new augments. And the reason I need you to make 80 new augments is we find that augments are some of the most memorable moments in TFT, and we want you to change these and have a couple new things. We're looking for this type that push the boundaries. It's really important for our players. This is a big deal. Please work on this project. And hopefully that person goes, damn, this is important work. This isn't just busy work of fill out augments because we have to have an augment checklist. It's no, augments are like, this is a crucial design problem for TFT. I need to make some great augments, And so by having that sort of clear direction and understanding of what you're working on, you should yield better results. And generally people, at least if they're the right people and they're good people, are satisfied solving important problems to make the game better. So yeah, those are really the two things I can offer, which is give your team a sense of purpose, a very good, clear, important purpose. Don't bullshit them, and treat your folks right. As long as you do those things, it's a good workplace. Anyone asking for any of the other stuff, like, oh, make sure there's lots of snacks, like, come on, man. That's not what it's about. So, and again, probably wasn't the answer you're looking for. I know that, but it's the best I can offer, and it's the things I will say have motivated me throughout my career. So that make a good workplace for me. So, yeah. All right, let's see if I can get through this last question. Co-stream, thoughts and feelings on viewership. So this question is in reference to the fact that during set 13, because Froden was busy with something, I forget what it was exactly. I want to say Sajam Slam, but he was busy, and so he didn't have a co-stream. And so I said, well, we should probably have an NA-based one, so I'll do it. And so I did a co-stream last year. I say last year like it wasn't 4 months ago. And, it went pretty well, other than the whole, I should have just shut up about the win trading situation. But, other than that, it went well. The co-stream was good, and viewership was pretty damn high. And I've always said I don't really care about the viewership because if anything, so here's, okay, let me fast forward to the thoughts here. I don't need to give the history lesson. The thing is, I have to be really careful that my job, and I've been clear about this before, and this is still true, I exist in service to TFT, right? My core job is make TFT good. My secondary thing is, hey, I've got some spare time. I can help TFT, right? I can do streams to help players. I can do whatever you guys ask. And so oftentimes when I'm like, hey, it's not Mort wants to co-stream, it's, hey guys, if you want me to co-stream, talking to like the esports team, I will. I'm happy to. In fact, I'd love to. But if you'd prefer me not, I won't, right? Like, it's not about what I want. It's about what the TFT team wants. Because again, everything I do is not about building the Mort Dog brand. It's about making TFT a better game. And I think having devs who talk to you honestly makes a better game. And so what I don't want, and I have to fight this perception a lot, is that there have been streamers in the past, even Riot has had to deal with this, that like, well, their goal for streaming wasn't to build up Riot Games, it was to build up their own personal brand. And so a lot of people might look at like, well, Mort's just co-streaming to build up his personal brand. And so, everyone assumes the worst intention out of your actions. And so if I co-stream and all of a sudden have more viewership than the primary broadcast, there are going to be people that look at that and go, that evil Mort, he's stealing the viewers or whatever, right? Like he's doing it for his own personal gain, which is not true. And so for Set 14, for example, they did ask me, they're like, hey, you should come to Texas and join Froden's co-stream. And I said, well, unfortunately, I can't really travel. I just traveled to LA, and also I'm starting this new design project. And so if I was on this new design project for 4 days and then said, sorry, I got to leave to travel for TFT, it doesn't really feel like I'm giving it 100%. So I couldn't justify the travel. But I said, hey, if you guys want me to co-stream, I will. Again, I leave the onus up to them, and they said, yeah, we want you to do it. So, okay, cool. Because again, my job is to help them. And so what I'm going to do when I co-stream is I'll just deliver the best experience that I think for people who want to nerd out and sort of talk about the game. And I think that's the thing I provide, is a bit more analytics about the game output. I'm much worse at like the player stories, right? In fact, half the time I mispronounce names and don't remember who's who. I'm way worse at that than someone like Froden. And so if you care more about player stories, you're probably going to watch Froden. Or if you care about the production value behind the stream, you're probably going to watch the main broadcast. But the thing I can offer is the nerdy guy who knows a lot about TFT talking about TFT and how to approach it. I think that's a unique product to have, and so I think that's fine. And if anything, we will learn about our audience that watches esports based on the divide of that viewership, right? And like, if anything, that can help inform our esports team about what kind of product they want to offer in the future, right? Like, let's say this isn't going to happen at all. I'm not stupid enough to think this. But let's say hypothetically, the viewership was me 1,000, the main broadcast 2,000, and Froden's co-stream 10,000, right? Like, let's say that was the viewership split. Well, that would inform the esports team of like where to put the effort, That's information they can use to make the esports a better broadcast. And they can use that for things like the Paris Open and stuff like that. So that's my opinion. My opinion is the co-stream is there to help. It's to make TFT more fun. And that's what I do. So there you go. All right, 32 minutes. We're on the longer side. I'm walking up the hill back home. Hope you guys enjoyed. Have a good week. I will see you. Sorry. Now I'm immediately thinking about the new design space and stuff I got to work on. So that's my day today, is figuring out where to be and not just awkwardly sitting around. So yeah. All right. Have a good week. That's going to do it for me. Until next time. Take it easy.